You can start
Lydia,
whenever you want.
Lydia, okay, well then I think we'll start because this was the workshop I was going to do this summer in 3 days, and we're doing it
Ah,
in 2 hours. So we'll have time. As I was telling Lydia, I've just cut, and kept what's most important. I'm going to start with Deborah Solnitz's quotation. She's a journalist who felt that she couldn't write what she wanted to for the American newspapers. So she is writing for The Guardian and still with us and publishing books. She wrote Light in the Darkness, and this is her quote: "There is no alternative to persevering. You, you are interwoven with 10 trillion things in this single garment of destiny that has been stained and torn, but is still being woven and mended and washed. We are interwoven in this one single garment of destiny. We are together. And this will be the theme of the workshop this afternoon. Solnitz's quotation gives me courage. And then I can't start without mentioning my two walking sticks, Thomas Merton and C.G. Jung, and I've added Einstein. Let's look at these three short quotes. We're talking about wholeness, oneness, this one garment. Thomas Merton wrote, "There is in all visible things an invisible fecundity, a dimmed light, a hidden wholeness, a hidden wholeness." And Albert Einstein, "A human being is a part of the whole, called by us universe." And then C.G. Jung tells us, "The attainment of wholeness requires one to stake one's whole being. Nothing less will do." So we are staking our whole being this afternoon on contributing to the wholeness of our universe, to the wholeness of our world. The workshop will have three parts. First is, how has wholeness been understood throughout the centuries? The second, how can we approach wholeness through writing? And the third, how can we contribute to it? After each part, there'll be a writing exercise, time for writing. I don't like calling it an exercise, with a little time for some reading, some talk, questions. So we begin with the first part of our workshop. How has wholeness been understood throughout the centuries? Wholeness is the revelation of the oneness of everything. This insight into the unity of creation is a state of grace that's found in Hinduism, Buddhism, Taoism, Zen, Christian, and Jewish mysticism. Unity of creation, a state of grace. It's best seen in the unity of opposites. If you have rain and sunshine, you have a rainbow, the unity of opposites. If you have sound and silence, you have music. If you have heaven and earth, you have the universe. And if you have man and a woman, you have a child. It was Rumi who said, "Opposites reveal each other. There has to be night to show that day exists. Without one, there is no other." Rumi, opposites reveal each other. There has to be night to show that day exists. Without one, There is no other. As we look through history to a few figures who represent and speak for wholeness, we could start with Hestia, the firstborn of Rhea and Kronos. Hestia was perhaps the least known, is the least known of the major Greek gods. She was the one who guarded the hearth on Mount Olympus. That hearth, the roundness of the hearth, with its eternal flame, is the archetype of oneness, the symbol of wholeness. A round hearth, a mandala, Hestia. On the other side of the world at that time, 6th century BCE, before the Common Era, we have Lao Tse and the Tao Te Ching, 6th century. The Tao Te Ching has 81 different little chapters. It was written, we believe, not written, composed by Lao Tse. Let me tell you, Lao Tse was so concerned, upset, disappointed with what was going on in his world that he was going into the desert for the rest of his life to be alone. He had been the keeper of the imperial archives, and seeing the decay of the society, he rode away alone into the desert. But at Hankou Pass, he was stopped by the gatekeeper who begged him to write the essence of his teachings. And by tradition, this is the Tao Te Ching that speaks of inner wholeness, the yin and the yang, the Tao, the source of our existence. Let's read from the chapter 81. Know the strength of man, but keep a woman's care. Be the stream of the universe. Being the stream of the universe, ever true and unswerving, become as a little child once more. Know the white, but keep the black. Be an example to the world. Being an example to the world, ever true and unwavering, return to the infinite. So these are excerpts from one of the chapters. You see that they're written in stanzas. Each stanza is 6 lines. My bar there means that, but keep a woman's care is on the next line. So it's not 6, it's 1, 2, 3, 4. Yes, it's five lines to a stanza. The Tao Te Ching, and each time the opposition, man, woman, white, black, become as a child, return to the infinite. 2 centuries later, in Plato's Symposium, Aristophanes, the playwright, was speaking about the human longing for wholeness. He told a story about the myth of the origins of human beings. In his story, this is in the Symposium, and there we are, the original human nature was not like the present. The sexes were originally 3 in number. There was man, woman, and the union of the 2. The primeval man was round, his back and sides forming a circle. Terrible was their might, and they made an attack upon the gods. Doubt reigned in the celestial councils. Methinks I have a plan which will enfeeble their strength, said Zeus. I will cut them in 2. He spoke, and he cut men in 2, like a sorb apple halved for pickling. Human nature was originally 1. We were a whole. The desire, pursuit of the whole is called love. From the Symposium, the dinner party. Aristophanes' speech. We were whole originally. As we look for our other half, we discover love that binds us, that brings back our original wholeness. Going through the centuries, I will skip up. I often talk about Hildegard of Bingen, as many of you know, the 12th century mystic. But I'm going today to talk about Julian of Norwich, the 14th century of mystic. She wrote one book, Revelations of Divine Love. It is a gospel of love. Her theology is one of integration, and she uses the Old English term oneing, O-N-E, where is it here? Yeah. Oh, Julian of Norwich. I looked at, no, all right. I had the handout is not there, so I will finish what I'm telling you, and then we'll go to that little quotation from her. Oneing is O-N-E-I-N-G. She speaks of oneing. We are one to each other. We are one to our country. We are one to the universe. This wholeness is reflected throughout all of creation. And she picked up a hazelnut, something small, a little thing, and she looked at it and wondered how it existed. And there we come to the quote, I looked at the hazelnut with the eye of my thought. What can this be? I was answered, it lasts and always will because God loves it. Thus, everything has being through the love of God. Everything has being through love, through the love of God. We define love as the creative source. Bergson is the élan vital. God is love. And we'll stop there. This belief on the part of Julian let her write this very famous quotation, all shall be well, and all shall be well, and all manner of things shall be well. Each time you have the page number there in her book. We need this today. All shall be well, and all shall be well, and all manner of things shall be well. Going through the centuries, what does C.G. Jung now say about wholeness? Jung, 1875 to 1961. In a letter to a friend, he wrote, everything living dreams of individuation, for everything strives towards its own wholeness. I didn't put this into the handout. Let me read it again. A quote that in a letter that he wrote in 1941. Everything living dreams of individuation, for everything strives towards its own wholeness. Individuation is a long word. It just means becoming a complete individual, a whole individual. This is what Jung did after he broke with Freud in 1913. He resigned from his professorship and he returned to his journal and to his dreams. He realized he had lost his soul. He undertook a confrontation with his unconscious, looking for his soul. He lets himself drop into the dark in his imagination. He's sitting in his office, closes his eyes and imagines going into the unconscious. He calls out, "Where are you, soul?" The soul responds. Together, they encounter different images. Jung dialogues with these images. He learns from them. He writes them down in his journals, his black books that have been published now. And out of his journals, he transcribed 3/4 of the black books into the red book, the famous, enormous, heavy red book. Let's look at one of these monologues and then a dialogue from the red book. In the Liber Primus, there's Secundus, and then there are the Scrutinies. There are 3 books in the red book. So Jung broke up with Freud in 1913. He went into his unconscious and he started talking to his soul. My soul, where are you? Do you hear me? I speak, I call you. Are you there? I have returned. I've shaken the dust of all the lands from my feet and I have come to you. Give me your hand, my almost forgotten soul. Give me your hand. This was after 11 years of wandering, up until 1913, where he was very busy. Professor, president of the International Association of Psychoanalysts. He gave it all up, went into the unconscious, and journeyed with his soul to become whole. Let's read the dialogue with his soul. I've set this up from the dialogue in the Red Book as a form of dialogue. It's spread out with sentences and description in between, but all the quotes are exact. My soul leads me into the desert of my own self. I did not think that my soul is a desert. My soul, what am I to do here? My soul spoke to me and said, wait. I heard the cruel word. I would like to sit down near you and at least feel the breath of your animating presence. You are to me like a shady tree in the wilderness. I would like to enjoy your shade. But my soul answered, you are a pleasure-seeking. Where is your patience? My faith is weak. The heat lies on me like lead. Thirst torments me. Can you not wait? Should everything fall into your lap, ripe and finished? You are hard, my soul. But you are right. We should grow like a tree that does not know its law. And the soul takes him in hand. And, where's your patience? You want everything right away. And Jung listens, and he loses some of his arrogance. On his way to becoming whole, in the Red Book, one dialogue after another. I think I mentioned that I have two walking sticks. One is C.G. Jung, the other is Thomas Merton. I could add others perhaps. But I'll stay with these two, the most important for me during my years. So what does my second walking stick tell me about wholeness? What does Thomas Merton say? The Trappist monk who died in Bangkok in 1968. He was against the war in Vietnam, and he was speaking at an international conference of monks. It's there where he so famously said, brothers, we are already one. These were monks from all around the world. Merton is addressing them. Brothers, we are already one. Listen to what he wrote in his long prose poem, Hagia Sophia. Sophia, wisdom, the feminine side of God. Hagia, holy Sophia. There is in all visible things, we read this in the beginning, an invisible fecundity, a dimmed light, a hidden wholeness. This mysterious unity and integrity is wisdom, the mother of all. It rises up in wordless gentleness and flows out to me from the unseen roots of all created being, welcoming me tenderly. Wholeness, wisdom, the feminine, ergos, feeling. It all goes together. We are one. We feel for each other. But before we can be one, with others, we have to be one with ourselves. We have to be one within. And he writes in his last book, 1968, that's when he died, and that's when he wrote it. It was published only in 2003, The Inner Experience. The first thing that you have to do is to try to recover your basic natural unity. Reintegrate your compartmentalized being. Compartmentalized being. I'm this, I'm that, I'm a mother, I'm a teacher, I'm this. How do we bring it all together? A unified human, compartmentalized being into a coordinated and simple whole. A coordinated and simple whole. And learn to live as a unified human person. This means you have to bring back together the fragments of your distracted existence so that when you say I, there's really someone present. It's time to write. Take out pencil, paper, take your journals. What is wholeness to you? What do you see when I ask you what is wholeness? And write 8 to 10 minutes, an entry, slowly. As you write in your journal, please start with the date and the place. Because when you go back and read your journals, you'll see where your writing flows. You'll read an entry, oh, that writing flows. Where was I? Where do I write more naturally? At what time of day? So journaling, your journals become a school of writing. So give the date, the place, and now, what is wholeness? 1 or 2 more minutes. And come to a stopping place. Give a title to your short journal entry. This makes you look for what you were really writing about, what's the essence of what you were writing about. And it's also easier when you go back and read your journal entries if they're titles. We have a few minutes to read. Do any of you wish to read or to tell something about what you experienced in thinking about wholeness? Yes, Lynn.
Okay, so this morning when I woke up, I started thinking about the meaning of wholeness. What is wholeness in light of the world? What is personal wholeness? And then immediately I thought of nature and anatomy and physiology of the human being. On a physical level, the body is created for and seeks homeostasis. It is the process by which an organism or a cell maintains a state of balance and stability in its internal environment, despite changes in its external environment. This process allows organisms to function and survive to its best. So must we seek this in everything in our life. Balance.
Balance, wholeness. Thank you. You saw it in a way that I have not done, and I'm happy to have it. And we need it today. We need to think that we're moving in that. It's our body that's giving us the balance to live today. Yeah. Thank you, Lynn.
You're welcome.
Another one? Am I seeing
It
everyone?
looks like Dixie has her hand raised.
Dixie? Fine.
Hey, coming home. What is wholeness? I'm a collection of fragmented parts. There's my taskmaster, the part of me that keeps lists and schedules and that punishes with cruel shaming when I don't perform or when my performances don't measure up. There's my rebel fighting the good fight against what she sees as the oppression of the taskmaster. Sometimes she wins, but the winning is hollow. It's lonely. It's isolated. It hides in electronic media and silly romances. There's my indulger, the part of me that, like an unwise mother who gives her child too many sweets lest the child stop loving her, will turn to food or media or shopping or any substance or activity outside myself that distracts me from pain. There's the lost child, the part of me that longs for wholeness, that cries out constantly, I want to go home. Only the home she cries for is never satisfied with brick and mortar. The home she longs for is somewhere in the stars, seemingly unattainable, the longing of despair. Beneath these parts, patiently waiting is self, loving, compassionate, uncompromising, but infinitely gentle. She sees and accepts reality. She opens her arms to comfort me. Too often I run from her, but she is home.
Oh, it's beautiful saying, ending up with she being home, being one with your own home and finding it. Hopeful. Dixie, we all long for home. Where do I want to go? I want to go home. Yes. Beautiful. Thank you. I'm not going to ask for another one right now. There'll be a chance after the second and third part. But thank you, Lynn. Thank you, Dixie. And let's move on together to the second part of the workshop. How can we approach our longing for wholeness? How can we run home? Through writing. Interesting, Dixie. How can we go home? Okay, good. In all forms of writing, the story arc, the rise and fall, is essential. There is a desire, a need for something. Its pursuit, its revelation. If we look at all different forms of writing, we will see that this need for wholeness underlines the writing. It is the unity that assures us a well-being, peace. Let's look first at journaling, then we will quickly look at fiction, nonfiction, and poetry. I'm saying to start with journaling because, as many of you know, for me it is the foundation of all my writing. I think it is the foundation of all writing. Journaling is a voyage to self-discovery. We remember the same word, jour, meaning day in French, in the words journaling and journey. So journaling is a journey to a deeper understanding of ourselves. With our words, we give life to what we see, what we hear, what we feel. We bridge the visible world and the invisible. We bridge what we see and what we discover within. As I move from the visible to the invisible, from the conscious world to the unconscious, I enter the world of imagination, the interworld. I often speak about seeing the invisible in journaling about an object. I've talked about shells, I've talked about daisies, I've talked about leaves. Let's think about the shell. We see lots of white shells on a beach. They're beautiful. We pick one up and we hold it in our hand. We see that it has a jagged edge. As I'm writing, I'm thinking, I too have a jagged edge. But it's all right. The shell is still beautiful. I can still be beautiful with a jagged edge. This is linking the visible shell to my own jagged edge, to myself, to my inner world. Bridging the visible and the invisible. In my book, 1 Year to a Writing Life, I write. And we go to the quotations in the handout. My journals are gleanings, what I have gleaned from a walk in the Swiss vineyards. I do not write every day, but I always keep my journal close. I note what I've written along the way, a dream, a conversation with one of my children, sky going pink in early evening, a quote from a book. My journal is like my writing desk, filled with notes and souvenirs. And I continue in this book, and I ask, why journal? And I give 6 reasons. And I'm adding a 7th today in my 9th decade. 1, to establish the habit of writing. A writer writes. 2, to capture memories. 3, to discover what you think and feel, each time going more deeply. To find your voice. When does your writing sound the most natural? Look at your entries to see. 5, we journal to take risks. The journal's a private place. 6, we plant seeds for stories in our journals. We move from image to story. And now I've added to converse with my soul. It's maybe from reading Jung and his Red Book that I realized that I too could imagine speaking with my soul. And I do this in journaling. I imagine my soul and I dialogue with her. One year to a writing life. It's been journaling that has kept me going, strengthened my voice. It continues to lead me to a deeper self, a self who wants to stand up and speak, to write down, to sit down and write, to share the bits of gold found in her long life and my long life. Imagine, I think I've shared this with some of you. Imagine it was last September, a year ago, not, so what are we? September, yeah, a year ago, that I received an email from someone in Tehran, a woman, who asked if she could translate Looking for Gold, my first book, which is filled with dreams and journal entries. She had read the book in Iran. No, she had read the book in Switzerland. She's a translator, and it comes to the Maison de Traduction, the House of Translation that's in Switzerland in Lorraine. And there she discovered some of my books, and she read Looking for Gold, and it spoke to her, to this Iranian woman on the streets in Tehran. She discovered that she was not alone, that there was a collective unconscious, a oneness, that others were with her, and she felt it important to translate the book for the women on the streets. And she has a publishing company. The story becomes a bit complicated because they had to flee. They are now looking for asylum in Switzerland with her husband, who is a poet. Their book will still be coming out. She has found a German publisher. It's being translated. She has translated it into Farsi. You can imagine how overwhelmed I was. Here's a book, something I wrote, this little Susan in Switzerland in 1995, through my writing, helping a woman in Tehran. We do this with our words. We don't realize it. We do it when we share a journal entry with a child of ours. We don't all have to publish a book. It's nice it's good when we can do it. But our writing, one little letter to the editor, is read by more people than people who buy a book. Bring your voices out, write, bring hope to this world. I go back to my workshop. Why journal? We're talking about journaling as a way to wholeness. And I turn now to Terry Tempest Williams. She's our poet laureate, now teaching at Harvard Divinity School. Through journaling, she found her voice to speak for justice. This is what she says to her editor in the book A Voice in the Wilderness, Conversations with Terry Tempest Williams. The starting point for all my work is in my journals. Everything I have ever written, whether it's an op-ed, an essay, or a book, it's in my journals first. The images, the experience. When I'm writing in my journal, it's an exploration on the page. I want to pay attention to the world in which we belong. We want to pay attention. And then in her more recent book, Erosion, Essays of Undoing, she addresses the erosion, it speaks to us today, erosion of the land, of our democracy, of human life. She sees erosion all around her. She asks questions to the reader, to us, and points to the slow way ahead, to the slow becoming whole. She writes, what are the necessary actions we can take in order to realize justice for all? How do we find the strength to not look away from all that is breaking our hearts? It's in the process of being broken open, worn down, reshaped, an uncommon tranquility can follow. Our undoing is also our becoming. I've come to believe this is a good thing. Our undoing is also our becoming. Our undoing today promises a new becoming tomorrow. Terry Tempest Williams has written many books. Each one has inspired me. How to start, how to begin. And I turn to Rainer Maria Rilke, to his letters to a young poet. 1908, the poet wrote to him and said, or the writer, the person, the young man, how do I become a poet? How do I become a writer? And Rilke took the time to answer. He responded, there's only one way, go within. And he writes, there's only one single way, go into yourself. Use to express yourself the things in your environment, the images from your dreams, the objects of your memory. The things in your environment, in your setting around you, the images in your dreams, and the objects of your memory. You must give birth to your images. They are the future waiting to be born. Give birth to the images, to your images. This is what Jung did in the Red Book. He gave birth to his images. He not only wrote them down once, he wrote them down twice in this beautiful Gothic calligraphy in the Red Book. He painted them. And he encouraged his adolescents to do the same thing. And the next page on the handouts, this is what Jung said to Christiana Morgan in 1926. I should advise you to put it all down as beautifully as you can in some beautifully bound book. Then, when these things are in some precious book, you can go back and turn the pages, and for you, it will be your church, your cathedral, the silent places of your spirit where you will find renewal. Your journal becomes your church, your cathedral, the place of your spirit where you find renewal. He's speaking to all of us, telling us to write it down. My journal is not a beautiful red book. It's a grayish lined small notebook that I keep in my purse. Often in journaling, I speak to an image and I listen to it and I write it down. Jung called this exercise in journaling active imagination. It's not passive, it's not a dream. You are actively imagining an image and speaking to it. You're entering that inner world between the visible object and the invisible spirit within, your creative spirit. And here is a dialogue that I've shared before that I did with my breakfast candle, January 1st, 2020. I closed my eyes and I waited for an image. It was a new year. It was difficult to let go and enter into the world of imagination. I was sitting at the kitchen table, and then the candle lit up. The flame became brighter, and I spoke to it. What can I learn from you? To shine faithfully. What do you mean, faithfully? Even when you're tired, shine. And if it goes out, relight it. That's what you do each morning. You light your candle. I need a match. Where's my match? In your unconscious. It is the spark that is always there. And then I write a few comments. I'm learning that even when I'm tired, I can still shine. That spark within me is always there. It will light my candle if I let it. It will light the candle if I let it. And the candle scolds me. It reminds me that it's something I do each morning. I light it. Active imagination. It can be like with the neighbor's cat. I tried to imagine this cat. It was coming to me, rubbing against my leg, and it didn't usually pay me any attention. So I said, "What do you want?" And I was thinking it would tell me something important. And it said, "Answer your emails." When something shocks me, I know that I'm in that inner world of imagination. I did not think that my neighbor's cat was going to tell me to answer my emails. And so I continued the conversation. I said, "What does this have to do?" And he said, "That's the way you're sharing your love." So, as a writer, my emails, I need to answer them. I share my love with my words as I write toward wholeness. From the neighbor's cat. Active imagination in journaling. And you see my candle there. Often when in my journals, I'll put a photo or I'll draw a little with a pencil. Journaling. We journal to move forward, to find the way to a peaceful world, to find the way to a whole world. Let's look now at other forms of writing. Fiction. I want to find a story that all of us know. I took Little Red Riding Hood, a fairy tale. We know the story. The little girl is setting out to take some cake or bread to her grandmother to visit her sick grandmother. She goes into the woods along the way. The wolf confronts her, finds out where she's going. She arrives, and instead of her grandmother in bed, it's the big bad wolf. He pounces on her, gobbles her up, as he did the grandmother. But there's a woodsman who overheard the conversation, who arrives, and who opens the wolf's stomach to release the little girl and the grandmother. Wholeness. The little girl and the grandmother together. Family. Wholeness. Not only did the originator of this fairy tale desire the wholeness of the family, but so does the person reading the fairy tale, knowing about it. Almost all fairy tales have this coming together. Cinderella, we're happy. Cinderella is with her prince. The arc, the story arc of a fairy tale, the story arc of writing, conflict, up, down, resolution, transformation, writing toward wholeness. We could think also of The Handmaid's Tale, not a fairy tale, unfortunately. Prescient, where we are today. The Handmaid's Tale, Margaret Atwood. I don't want to go that way. I want to stay with fiction. What is Lydia doing in The Handmaid's Tale? She's writing. She's writing the story. And it's going to save the Republic of Gilead. A writer. Okay, how about nonfiction? How do we write toward wholeness in nonfiction? I turn to Orhan Pamuk in Istanbul. Istanbul is a memoir. He relates his childhood, his young adulthood, and constantly there is this love of his home city, Istanbul. Listen to him in the chapter titled "To be unhappy is to hate oneself and one city." So we go to the next handout, the next quotation, which will be Pamuk. Yes, Istanbul, thank you. To be unhappy is to hate oneself and one city. This city, like my soul, is fast becoming an empty place. When its melancholy begins to seep into me and from me into it, I begin to think that there's nothing I can do to escape this hybrid hell. I conjure up a golden age, a pure and shining moment when the city was at peace with itself, when it was a beautiful whole. I give the page number. A beautiful whole, Istanbul. Orhan Pamuk. Nonfiction, writing toward wholeness, longing for home, longing for wholeness. And before I turn to poetry as a way, I want to get rid of this title up here. This is a mistake. We're not up to the third part. We're still looking at the way we can write toward wholeness in all different forms of writing. And we were looking at nonfiction with Pamuk. So I apologize for my mistake in putting that title there. We have looked at journaling, we have looked at fiction, nonfiction, and now poetry. And I turn to Mary Oliver, one of my favorite poets. Died 4 or 5 years ago. Lived off the coast of Maine with her woman friend. She found wonderment and peace in her life through nature, through her habits of solitary walks in the natural world. She's writing about wholeness here. She writes in the poem of One World. It is a beautiful poem. Let us read it slowly. This morning, the beautiful white heron was floating along above the water, and then into the sky of this, the one world we all belong to, where everything, sooner or later, is a part of everything else, which thought made me feel for a little while quite beautiful myself. I want to take time and read it again. This morning, the beautiful white heron was floating along above the water, and then into the sky of this, the one world we all belong to, where everything, sooner or later, is a part of everything else, which thought made me feel for a little while quite beautiful myself. I'm in awe with what Mary Oliver has accomplished in this short poem. One sentence. one image, the beautiful white heron, one thought. She too is part of this one world, the one world. And so, like the heron, she too is beautiful. Oh, it's gorgeous, that poem. She is beautiful like the heron. All right, we have seen how we use writing toward wholeness. So, time for another writing exercise. Not an exercise, another spurt of writing. You have described how you see wholeness in a journal entry. Now close your eyes and imagine a story of a little girl, could be yourself, looking for wholeness in her or in your family. Think of an experience, a happy one, maybe a birthday celebration, Christmas. If you're writing about yourself, it'll be in first person, the little girl. A story, you were looking for something. If it's in third person, if it's someone else, another little girl, it'll be in third person. In one, the story, in the other, the story takes the form of a personal essay. Write it as a short story or as a short personal essay. Seeing wholeness, imagining it in a story. You have again 8 to 10 minutes. Another minute or two. Come to a stopping place. And give your story a title. And again, there's time for sharing? Does somebody want to either read what they've written or say what this meant to them to write a story about their search for wholeness. Heidi, I saw your hand. Yes. You have to unmute.
And I have my hand up
There
too.
you are. Okay.
Yes, the moment of wholeness in my family, maybe the only, was the birth of my sister, my half sister. And I wrote a lot about what it was like, the joy I found folding diapers for her, because we were a family, we were a whole. There was my sister and me and my parents, we were a whole. And then as things fragmented as the family, we could never be, fell away and secrets divided us and everything. It was only after my mother died a few years ago that I realized that the reason I wrote that long memoir that you read part of was I wanted my sister back. And I worked very hard to get her back. And in the past few years, I have her back. And the
Oh,
wholeness, the little spark of the only little spark in my family, which is completely horrible, was my sister. And we were totally severed.
how
But
beautiful. I can just
yes,
see you with
yes, yes.
diapers with her again. Oh,
I
how
love
beautiful.
folding diapers, stacking them. That was so fun. But having her back now, I realize that was my wholeness, that we've
Yeah,
created that wholeness with each
right,
other.
right.
Yeah,
Beautiful.
yeah, yeah.
Really good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? I don't see. Yes, Deborah. Good.
I
We
don't
miss
know.
you
I
back.
have
We
my
miss you.
hand up. This is Julie.
Oh, Julie, go, Julie.
Okay.
Okay.
First I drew a total blank and experienced some panic, but then this came to me. A lot of you know I'm a novelist, so I wrote a story. I have a puzzle made of beautiful blonde wood that used to form a perfect sphere when it was put together properly, when my mother gave it to me for my 6th birthday. I immediately took it apart, but couldn't fit the pieces together again. You can do it, Mommy says. I know you're smart and you have a good visual imagination. Yes, but only on paper in 2 dimensions. I'm not good at 3 dimensions. I begin to sob. There, you'll get it eventually, she says as she wraps her arms around me in a hug.
Oh, that is beautiful. Okay, so you're getting it. You will get it. You will. And it sounds,
Right. Well, probably spent my life trying to get it, but
but
I
it's,
remember those puzzles just came to me, and I don't know if
but
they make
you got,
them anymore.
Julie, you got it in the hug.
Uh, yeah, the hug
You did.
instant,
It was
but the
all
hug is
there.
something my mother probably wouldn't have given me. She wasn't that demonstrative, but she did give me courage.
Good. Thank you, Julie. Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Deb,
Okay.
back to you.
Oddly enough, I went back to a memory of my father and me, and I can only surmise that this was a moment of wholeness for me. I won't read the whole thing, but this was when we're in the boat fishing up in Canada. I'm 9 years old. The cove where we were fishing was known for its pickerel and great northern. It ran deep and cold, and the trees bowed over it all around the shore, as if in allegiance to its silence and depth. I took all that in each time we fished, but then I eagle-eyed the bobber, always waiting for it to be tugged down, down into the blackish brown water. The thrill of it surging through me, hardly listening to my father's coaching, but then loving when he'd wrap his big arms around me, help me reel in the monster, guide it into the net, and land the magnificent fish on the bottom of the boat.
Wholeness. So good. Thank you. Thank you. Patricia, did I see you raise your hand?
Yes. And
Okay. Time for
Susan,
one more. Good.
okay. This is called braids. I don't know what this is, but it is something that has come to me in the last today and in the last few days. I am 12 and I am sitting as a friend is braiding my hair. She sees me crying and she asks if I'm ill. I say no, I'm disappointed. She says I understand, but remember, it's important to be happy again. You must survive. You must survive and keep your health. I ask, well, how do I do that? And she says, look around. You have friends, lots of friends, and together we have strength. And I say, but there are lots of people who do not like us. And she said, that may be true. And then she raises her hand. Stop. I'm thinking of you with love and solidarity. You will find out how deep and strong that is when you raise your head, your voice, and get moving. And she smiled and continued to braid my hair.
Oh, that is gorgeous. Thank you, Patricia. It speaks to all of us, I'm certain. It speaks to all of us. Through friends, through the passage of time, we find our wholeness. Thank you. Good to see you again.
Good to see
Miss
you.
our times having a cup of coffee together with so many of you. Okay, so we are at the third part. I wonder if it's correct on the, if I wrote that title twice or not. We'll see. Let's go down and see what comes next. Right, okay, so that title, which is How Can We Contribute? That's right, it's, here's the time of the saleable. I go to Estes, I go up a bit. All right, well, there's something missing. Okay, so we're gonna, I do not have the whole ninth elegy in your handout. All right, well, I'll just have to. Yes, I do. It just overlaps. Okay, so we're up to Rilke. Right. All right, the third part. How can we contribute to wholeness in our broken world today? It's broken. How can we bring it back? And I return to Solnit's image, a single garment of destiny. There's no alternative to persevering. You are interwoven with the 10 trillion things in this single garment of destiny that has now been stained and torn, but is still being woven. That now is not in the quote. So a single garment of destiny that has been stained and torn, but it is still being woven and mended. So how, through our writing, can we mend the garment, the single garment of destiny? And I turn again to Rilke, who, after having led us inward, go inward to write, leads us outward in the elegies, the ninth elegy. In this elegy, he comes to the startling conclusion that the world needs us. This fleeting world, fleeting, disappearing, needs us, even if we are the most fleeting of all, even if we're here only once. We are here to bear witness to all the fleeting things around us. Our vocation is to speak, to write, to bear witness. And we read in the elegy, here is the time of the saleable. Here is its homeland. Speak and bear witness. Things, those able to be experienced, are falling away more than ever. For what is replacing them, crowding them out, is an imageless doing. So busy, no time for images, an imageless doing. And these things that live, they trust that we, most perishable of all, will do something that saves. that we will do something that saves. Their desire is that we entirely transform them in our invisible heart into, oh, endlessly, into ourselves, whoever we are at the end. To become one with the things around us, to transform them into ourselves. Rilke, the ninth elegy. It is to transform the things that we write about ourselves, that we become one with creation. That is our wholeness. And to give us courage, I turn again to Clarissa Pinkola Estes. First generation American, mestiza, Latina, Native American, Spanish Mexican, writer, keeper of old stories, Jungian psychoanalyst, and post-trauma specialist. I speak of, whoop, I've gone off again. There I come back. I speak of this letter to a young activist that she wrote around 1911, after 9/11, around 1903, 1905. She wrote a letter to a young activist in troubled times. We are in troubled times today. Those of you who have been at many of my workshops have read this letter. I reread it. It is beautiful. It speaks to me. It will speak to you. Do not lose heart. We were made for these times. In any dark time, there is a tendency to veer toward fainting over how much is wrong in the world. Do not focus on that. Ours is not the task of fixing the entire world at once, but of stretching out to mend the part of the world that is within our reach. The part of the garment that is within our reach. One of the most calming and powerful actions you can do to intervene in a stormy world is to stand up and show your soul. Soul on deck shines like gold. Excuse me, please correct the typo. Shines like gold. It's not the first time I've done that, but this has been around for 20 years. I've used it, and I make the same mistake. It's telling me something, that gold is God or that God is gold. I don't know what. Soul on deck shines like gold in dark times. The light of the soul throws sparks, can send up glares, build signal fires. To display the lantern of the soul in shadowy times is an act of immense bravery and necessity. Struggling souls catch light from other souls who are fully lit and willing to show it. Stand up and show your soul. Stand up and shine like gold. Clarissa Pinkola Estes, she has a Facebook page and she continues to encourage her readers. Incredible. There's so many of these people who are fully lit and willing to show it, and we thank them. As we stand up and show our soul, we are rediscovering the metaphor of Indra's net. You remember this over the palace of the god Indra. There was a net where in each intersection there was a gem. And the movement of light in one gem lit up all the gems in the net. The jewels were so arranged that each reflected all the other jewels. This was written in the Vedas back in 1500 BC. this holographic nature of our universe was already imagined. Indra's net is Solnit's garment, a metaphor for the holographic nature of our universe. We are all interrelated. What one of us does affects all of us. And today, quantum physics is telling us that the universe is a whole, that every point is connected to all the other points. It's the Franciscan theologian Ilia Delio who writes in her book, Hunger for Wholeness, that we come from this existing wholeness and that in awakening to it, we become more whole, more unified. The desire for wholeness speaks to something deep within the human person. And she writes, we have the capacity to wrap the earth with a new mantle of compassionate love and peace. But do we have the vision? Can we imagine a new world rising up from the ashes of the old? The burden of the future is on us. If we want a different world, we must become a different people. Ilia Delio, Hunger for Wholeness, a Franciscan theologian with degrees both in science, biologist, and theology. She writes that we belong to this whole. She speaks from her mentor, who is Teilhard de Chardin, a century ago, the French Jesuit, who saw the omega point as the coming to oneness in the creation. We are evolving to a complete oneness. Certainly, there are errors. We fall backwards. But slowly, we are moving to wholeness, to oneness, to just to being one with each other. She writes, there is only one universe. Our modern age has attended only to the outer universe of separate objects, but reality includes the inner universe, the undivided whole. Ilia Delio. I'm moving close to the end of this workshop. We're going to write again, and I turn back to C.G. Jung, who has given me a faith in the oneness of humanity. He had a dream in his youth that I've spoken about in most of my workshops and written about in many of my books, to which he returns to in the last pages of his autobiography, Memories, Dreams, Reflections. He had a dream as a young person where he was in the dark woods. Wind was blowing all around him, storms were raging, and he was carrying a little light. It was cupped in his hands. It was the light of his consciousness. There was a shadow behind him, his own shadow. Let's read Jung instead of listening to Susan. It was night in some unknown place, and I was making slow headway against a mighty wind. Dense fog was flying everywhere. I had my hands cupped around a tiny light, which threatened to go out at any moment. Everything depended on my keeping this little light alive. Suddenly, I had the feeling that something was coming up behind me. I looked back and saw a gigantic black figure following me. But at the same time, I was conscious, in spite of my terror, that I must keep my little light going through the night and wind, regardless of all dangers, regardless of all dangers, keeping that little light. When he woke, he knew that that black figure was his own shadow. And he wrote about how recognizing the reality of this little light and the black figure, the reality of good and evil, relativizes both. And if we can coordinate them into a whole, there'll be a new world of oneness. Remember, rain and sunshine, rainbow. Bring the good and evil together, darkness and light. Jung in his shadow. And writing about this, he arrives at the extraordinary thought, and this is the last quotation that you have there. As far as we can discern, the sole purpose of human existence is to kindle a light in the darkness of mere being. Let's just stop there and meditate a moment. The sole purpose of human existence is to kindle a light in the darkness of mere being. To kindle a light. And Jung continues, it may even be assumed that just as the unconscious affects us, so the increase in our consciousness affects the unconscious. And we are back to what one of us does affects all of us. What I can increase in my consciousness affects the unconscious, affects the whole of creation, the collective unconscious and the conscious world. It's all a whole, it's all one. Let us become whole makers. Whole makers. And I'm up to asking you to write again. Close your eyes and go within. Who among your family and friends needs encouragement, needs a helping hand? Write an email or a letter to one person, perhaps a grandchild, perhaps a child, perhaps a friend, assuring them that you are together, that you are one, and that the oneness will shine, that there is a oneness in life, and that that oneness is love, and that you love this person. Try to share your hope for oneness in a letter to a friend, to a child, to somebody who needs a helping hand. Again, 8 to 10 minutes. I killed it. You have it? So take the three. And that one, please, I need the puzzle. I need you. Another 2 or 3 minutes. And come to a stopping place and give your letter a title. And before we ask to have some of you read. Write down your 3 titles. Go back and find your other 2 titles so that you have them in the order that you wrote them, 1, 2, 3, okay? The first one, what is wholeness? The second, the story of someone looking for wholeness, of yourself or a little girl. And the third, to a friend or a child. Your 3 titles maybe have a progression showing you how wholeness has become something real for us during this workshop. It's not an easy word. I wrote a book called Writing Toward Wholeness, and it's been translated into French. The word in French is la plénitude. I think it's easier to hold on for me to oneness. But to bring the 2 halves together, I go back to Zeus, who cut people in half, the sword apple. So some of us look for, as we look for our other half, there is wholeness. And I gave you this little exercise to work with titles to let you see how wholeness, how you've experienced it in this workshop, the concept of wholeness. And now let's hear some more of your words. You've heard mine a great deal. Who would like to read? Margie, yes, please.
Yes, just the last one. Sorry. Dearest Noel, as the world slides
Who are you writing to? A friend?
my best friend, yeah.
Okay, okay.
Dearest Noel, I'm writing to her because her husband is also going into darkness right now in terms of cognitive issues. Dearest Noel, as the world slides into a long winter darkness, please know that you are whole, you are lovely, and you are loved. You are not alone. My thoughts go with you every day. As the Quakers say, I will hold you in the light. And as I hold you in the light, I will pray for the health and healing of this world.
I understand. I understand. I feel that with you. I have a husband myself who is with Parkinson dealing with it. And I listen to your words for me. Thank you, Margie. Right.
It looked like
Karen,
her hand up. Yep.
I saw you raise your hand there. Yes.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to say that this call is the antidote to something I saw on Facebook this morning that said, right now, I am compartmentalizing so much that I should probably look into renting a storage unit. So this idea of bringing everything together. So I just wanted to say I'm a cantor. That's some of the work I do in the world as a Jewish professional. And I took the word tikkun olam, which means to repair the world. And I said to stitch together the world's tiny tears, to smooth the jagged edges of the shards, to fill the gaping holes with a honeyed maple syrup. And then finally, I took the idea of the ner tamid, of this light that burns over the ark. And I said, don't just kindle a light, be a light. When the nights are darkest, be the light that illumines the path for another. When you doubt, just look up above the ark to the ner tamid, the eternal flame, and bring it to your heart, and soon you'll glow from within.
We We wish, we will, we try, and thank you. I saw that as you were writing, something moved within you, and in the darkness, we lift our spirits and we see the stars. Right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? D. Yes. Someone perhaps that I do not remember well or that I'm meeting for the first time.
This is our first encounter, Susan, and I'm grateful. I just looking at what I've written here is absolutely amazing to me because I think I didn't know this was inside of me, and thank you for bringing it out. I'd like to share the last one because it kind of, well, first of all, let me say, this last week, one of the writings was about my unborn granddaughter's heart stopped beating. And this has been a very painful time for us. But anyway, so the last one about writing an email, I thought, oh, wow, so many options for this email today. Then as you write and you don't think, you just write. And I said, maybe I should begin with me. But I edited out should, because there's a saying that says don't should all over yourself.
That's right.
So I edited that out. But the email I wrote to myself is D, you have the heart and love to help those around you. Be still and find a place that will be yours to regain your wholeness. And then you'll be able to share some of your sound and silence as music, some of your rain and sunshine as rainbows. You have subconsciously gathered journals, pens, photos, natural objects. I've collected all these things to encourage journaling in my community. What is holding you back? And then I used one of your quotes, Susan. Here is the time for sayable.
Yeah.
And so the title of this writing is Encouraging Myself. So,
Right.
and I thank you for all the encouragement that everyone here has brought. I'm very, very grateful.
All right. We're grateful to all who are here, to one another, and thank you, Dee. So, to give to others, we have to give to ourselves. Yeah, it's true. Thank you. One last one. Any questions? Anything you want to share before we close our workshop?
This is
I have a
Julie.
hand.
Just to thank you. And I missed you at the conference this summer. I was wondering how you were.
Right. I'm staying closer to my husband, and so that I haven't gone back to the States now for 2 years. We're both 90. I can only say that we're very fortunate to be as active as we are, and in our home. You can see the curtain here. There is the Lake of Geneva and Mont Blanc, the Alps. And if I go this way, there's Geneva. If I go that way, there's the Jura Mountains. We have this home in a residence of like 50 different. Remember Levittown? That places me way back, right? When we had these groups of 3 or 4 houses. There are 52 houses in this large residence with a swimming pool in the middle, which is very nice because we don't have to do anything about it. And my husband, with his Parkinson this summer, was swimming every day. So we are very fortunate to be here with our friends, with the Geneva Writers Group that I started, goodness, now 25, almost, well, 30 years ago, and that is still going strong. And I started it because of what I learned at IWWG. I went to IWWG the first time in 1990. Alice, when did you go? 1990? You can unmute yourself. Hi.
Yes,
So
I think you were our first years were the same.
What did you say?
I think we were both there the same first year.
Right. Okay. I didn't get that. Alice. I didn't understand you. I want to.
Sure want to be heard.
It must be the microphone.
Mhm.
Oh,
But it was 1990 for you
yes,
also?
yes.
Okay. And after going, Hannelore said, we sort of hope you'll come back. I mean, it was extraordinary for me. I was living completely in French. And I was working with a group of writers here, and we published a little book. And that book got into Hannelore hands. And she wrote to me and said, we're having a conference at Skidmore. Won't you come? So I went. And then she said, wouldn't you come back? And I said, well, I'd like to teach. I'd like to teach the personal essay. And that just started me on this 25, 30 years. And because of the experience, I was able to start the Geneva Writers Group, where there are about 200 writers, not all necessarily English. There's some who come who are enough bilingual to write in their own native language. And that is going on also, which is, it's a gift to me. IWWG continues. It's beautiful. I say thank you to Michelle. Thank you to Lydia. It's extraordinary what's being done at the Guild. And it's the same for the Geneva Writers Group. And one time we had a conference where we brought the two together, and it worked. It was a beautiful conference. It was in 2005, 20 years ago. All right, so that's enough of my story again. Somebody have something else to say before we close?
Susan, can you hear me?
Yes?
Have you considered
Who is
doing
this?
it?
Do I
This is
recognize
Kat.
Michelle's voice?
This is Patricia.
Oh, okay.
Uh-huh.
Okay,
I,
Patricia, right.
uh-huh. I'm wondering if you have given any consideration to doing any workshops online in 2025 for IWWG.
No, but I could. I do workshops online for the Jung societies, for the Jung Society of Washington, the Jungian platform, and for Soul at Play. And I'll be doing one in Atlanta, Georgia. Where are you living,
I
Patricia?
live about 70 miles northeast of Atlanta.
Okay, I'm not going to Atlanta,
I would, I think, I thought
but
so.
I'm going to be doing a workshop there in September. I mean, online
Hmm.
for the Jung Society of Atlanta. So
Okay.
I do have, I should, and I haven't updated my website, and I will continue to do this because as I wrote, as I mentioned to you, the Jungian work does really feed my soul. I
Hmm.
wish that more people were aware of this collective unconscious. It's what we're talking about today, the wholeness, the oneness.
Hmm.
Uh, so that answers your question, and I would be glad to do one online for IWWG also.
Lydia, will you share that
Deborah, you're
with me?
raising your hand. Yes.
Yeah, Susan, I wrote this in the chat too. I just want to thank you for the workshop. I've taken your workshops for 20 plus years, many years, maybe, and with the Guild and elsewhere. And this has really been the most meaningful workshop I've had with you. My last title that I wrote was Legacy,
Mm.
because that is what I feel I experienced today from you. It has been
Yeah.
the most meaningful workshop I've ever attended.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Deborah. Legacy, right. I appreciate it.
Susan, what is
Glad
your website? It's Kathy.
Elizabeth, Kathy, yes.
What is your website? Is it just, is your name?
Yeah, www. Susan Tiberghien.
Okay.
And I have a new book coming out this week.
Oh,
The Seasons of Love, A Lasting Marriage. And I started, first of all, thinking about redoing Side by Side, which was a memoir of my husband's sitting here next to me. That's why I'm pointing to him. He just came in and sat down. He's shy. He's French. All Frenchmen are not shy. Okay. And then Side by this new book took off, and as I was thinking of the seasons, how if we see a relationship For me, it was our marriage. 66 years together. I won't tell you how many nights that means together. 66 years together. I'm thinking there's seasons. Everything has its season. Spring, summer, fall, winter. But there are also seasons in each year. And by thinking of a relationship in the terms of seasons, we grow confident that after winter, there will be spring. After death, we're in our 90s, there will be spring. And it just it keeps me going. And this is what I'm writing about in the book. It's Chiron that will be publishing it. I'm working, finishing the color of the back cover, but it's all done. And will become Seasons of Love, A Lasting Marriage. The Chiron Publications in North Carolina. They have published my last 2 books, which are Jungian. Yes, Marilee. No. Is that your name? No.
Yeah, Marilee. I just want to thank you for this incredible workshop and introduce myself to you because I can't believe I haven't come across you until now. I've been involved in Jungian stuff my whole adult life. And I'm a writer and I live on the West Coast and something drew me to this workshop. I'm a member of IWWG. I thought, oh, who is this? And I thought, well, I'm going to get up at 7 o'clock in the morning, which I normally don't do on Saturday, especially because I thought I just have to be here. And I'm so grateful to have been here and to thank you for being an inspiration. Especially right now when I think so many of us need it, and just to be with this gathering of souls that have so much light.
Right.
It gives me hope.
Marilee, thank you, thank you. We have synchronicity. We believe in this, that nothing is just pure chance. There, with this nap of love that links us together, synchronicity, they're meaningful circumstances. There was a reason why Marilee, I believe, was led to this workshop today. And if we see synchronicity, if we get used to it, it happens all the time, but we're blind to it. Thank you, Marilee.
Thank you.
Can I let you go? My clock says 18 for me. It's dark outside. Okay, wholeness. Think of what we can do. It's so important. We've seen it through the centuries. We've seen it in our writing. We see how we can use it, whether we write fiction, nonfiction, poetry, or journaling. And now we can contribute to that wholeness, sending an email to somebody who needs a helping hand, which you have done. Writing your words, sharing them, a letter to an editor. I keep going back to this. A book maybe has like, I used to know this by heart, an average book. No, I'm not going to get it correct, so I don't want to get it wrong. An average book doesn't sell that much, okay? But a letter to the editor, there may be thousands who read it, but it doesn't matter. All you have to do is help one person, and our life has a meaning. So write toward wholeness, and think of all the people that we've read from. And think of Julian of Norwich. All shall be well, and all shall be well, and all manner of things shall be well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. Have a wonderful rest of your day, everyone.
Okay, and thank you for everyone who put messages in. I didn't answer, but I thank you, and I've read them. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.